In my mission to make every corner of the world awesome, I first began with one person, then hundreds, then thousands, and now hundreds of thousands. And that is how we will build this universe into a megalopolitan of awesome people. For much of my mission as a peak performance coach for teams and individuals, I have taken every opportunity to learn from the stories and wisdom of great people. There is so much of the universe to take from them, and this is the best way to bring these stories together, to heal, to strengthen, to awaken, to inspire, and to transform. And even though we still face difficulties of today and tomorrow, we continue to wake up and move our dreams every day with courage and strength. Welcome to Awesome People, a show that aims to shift the energy of the universe to a higher level through the work and stories of game changers and magic makers. It is our hope that through the course of a single conversation, the world moves for you, that you shine a light to stoke your fire.
Congratulations, kudos to you and the entire World Stage team. Fired up and ready to go!
The lessons that Cherry and their team imparted to us. So I was quite happy. I'm very happy with the output.
Thank you to Coach Cherry and her awesome World Stage International team. May you continue keeping the world fired up and ready to go.
Again, thank you World Stage. You are awesome.
Hello, awesome people! In today's episode of Firecast Live, How to Inspire Hope 6 Feet Apart, I bring you a TV actress, a TV host, a model, an entrepreneur, and philanthropist, the founder of Generation Hope, who has done a lot of greater good for our education and agriculture sector. Please welcome to the House of Awesome, Nanette Medved-Po. Hello, awesome people. We are on our 74th day of lockdown, and the fear is very real. It's coming to us in physical ways, even in psychological terms. And I think at this point in time, hope seems to be so much better than fear. But the question is hope such, is hope really just a nice thing to have, a good thing, a wishy-washy thing, a better thing, or it's something that is actually real and something's going to help us? So I am here with none other than, I call her the Hope Hero. All right. Please welcome to the House of Awesome. Thank you for coming, Miss Nanette Medved-Po. How are you, Nanette?
Thank you for having me, Cherry. I'm glad to be here with you.
How's everything right now? You're in your office, so you're working.
I'm in my office, so I'm working. I think it's as well as it can be given the circumstances.
How's the family?
Well, we're fine. I mean, we're all huddled together, and this is that's, I think, maybe a little bit of an upside, because normally we kind of only come together at the end of the day because everybody's off doing their own thing. So it's kind of nice to know where everyone is. If you need them, you can go to them anytime, right?
And it's a special time to be together, I guess, with family, right? It's precious to actually have Chris with you every day.
yeah. And I think my mother is here as well. We asked her to join us because I didn't want to worry about not being able to reach her if something went wrong. So it's I think as you get older, you realize how valuable time with family is.
All right. So Nanette here is actually the founder of Generation Hope. So we are going to talk about your business and also yours charity or your, philanthropic work. And we're also going to talk about hope as a construct. Okay. So, the business, let's talk about Hope in a Bottle. How's the business right now?
It's challenging because the flagship product of Hope is water. And water, we're a premium item, and we tend to be available in Horeca locations, so restaurants, coffee shops, hotels, things like that. And those are the most, in the retail area, most hit, right? You'll find them in malls and all of that. And so we are experiencing a big drop in sales. And we also, in the outlets that are open, so a lot of restaurants have tried to start delivery, and whether it's Starbucks or Shakey's or whoever, and that's great. The problem is, for Hope particularly, is that water is not necessarily a takeout item.
Mm-hmm.
So just because outlets are starting to deliver doesn't necessarily mean that beverage sales will recover, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
All
it's
right.
challenging, but we're fine.
Yeah, but you've done a lot of good in our community. You've helped a lot of people, especially children, right? How many schools have you built as a result of your work?
Well, we're paused in some of our builds, but we're approaching 100 builds so far.
Mm-hmm. All right, wonderful. I was thinking about, how important it is for, people to be hopeful right now, and for, for people to be high hopers. Let's talk about hope first as a word. Like when you were, building this company and you called it Hope, I'm really just very curious why, of all the positive emotions or positive states we need to be, why did you call your business Hope?
Oh, because I just think that it's such an essential emotion, no? I mean, it assumes that things aren't always okay, but that you have positive feelings about how it'll all turn out, right? And that's, I think, essential I can't imagine a world without hope, no? So I just thought that would be an appropriate reflection of how we would like to approach our mission.
We are actually going through some difficult, things right now. This crisis thing, it has gotten us on our knees. It has disturbed our soul. Is hope important? Is it really an important commodity in business, and can it translate to positive results in tangible forms, or is it something that's just wishy-washy, nice to have, puts people in good states?
I don't like to separate my values and between business and kind of my own personal values or my private life. So I don't tend to compartmentalize hope for business. So I think it's essential regardless for whether it's in business or in your personal life, or as we look to this current crisis, no? I would not say that it's necessarily a recipe for success, but I would think that it contributes to success. No, if you can be hopeful and put one foot in front of the other, even when times seem very, very difficult, and have faith, that you oftentimes will find yourself much better off than you've driven by the right values and the right emotions and your aspirations for good things, right? So I whether it's in business or it's in your private life, I don't think you need to compartmentalize.
And at this point in time, we need a lot of hope, right? To actually, have something to look forward to, to future cast, to see whatever it is in front of us, because it's something that's unknown right now. Like when we talk about unknown, for example, hope gives us the confidence to forge forward, even though it's not very clear where we want to go to. Specific to your business, for example, for Hope, what is it that you are actually aiming towards now that we are in a totally new normal and it's totally just, shaken down our universe? What are you looking forward to? What's now the big goal?
I think that the truth is our goal at Hope hasn't changed, right? Because at the end of the day, even if when you talk about business, I'm sure you're thinking about it in terms of our water business. But the truth is we're not a water company. We're an impact company. And so whether we do that through water or we do that through basket weaving or I don't know what, right? At the end of the day, our mission is always going to be business for good, right? And delivering on nation building through whatever activities we do. So our mission hasn't changed, right? But the way we go about executing on that mission might, right? So if you look specifically at the consumer goods space that we're in, I have actually a very, I hope, a very healthy attitude on this. It is that we're going to be forced to do business in ways that we had anticipated we would move into. It's just we're going to do it much quicker than we thought, right? So whether you're migrating your sales more quickly online, right? Whether you're diversifying your channels so that you can be cushioned whenever one particular sector is affected, right? So all of those things that you should be doing have just become much more urgent. So we have aligned the organization to make sure that we do those things in a much shorter timeline than we thought, right? It also forces us to do the things, at least at Hope, that, you know, not just diversifying kind of the channels were available. And in our case, it's more, Hope is not just a water business. And I think maybe we focused on it too much, right? So looking at it, at the other revenue streams that makes Hope really strong. And I think a big part of that is our co-brand partnerships. And I think we'll focus more on that because there's great value, I think, in working together with the rest of the business community on our mission and not just do it ourselves.
Okay, wonderful. I was just thinking how, you know, when you talk about a national transformation of which you wanted to be a part of, because you mentioned you are not a water business, you are an impact business. And so you hope that in your own contribution, you're able to actually impact national transformation. This thing that has happened to us, to our nation, do you think that we are, as a group of people, trained enough to handle this kind of crisis? I mean, do we have the DNA, the hope DNA in us? And when we talk about hope, we just don't talk about wishful thinking, right? We talk about goals, and we talk about having pathways and strategies to reach those goals. Are we trained enough as a group of people to handle this crisis, Nanette? What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that's a little bit, I think that's such an easy ask, right? The Filipino is an incredibly optimistic, resilient group, right? I mean, this is the country that brought the world people power, right? And that is a democratizing, it's not, you know, a small group of people that came in and created national change. It was a democratized movement, right? And so when I started Hope, the idea was to leverage that energy of the average person being able to contribute to nation building, not just, you know, the top 50 families that can write big checks, but, you know, everyone in the country, in the same way that we pulled together for people power, right? That we all have a part to play in making the world around us better. And this is an easy way. Right? So I don't think that the Filipino, this is somehow beyond the Filipinos to overcome. And if anything, courage is not the absence of fear, it's the action despite it. And Filipinos do it all the time. They do it every day. So I have great confidence.
And when you talk about resilience, for example, which is the ability to recover, right? You need hope, because if you don't have hope, you don't stand up, right? You get stuck or you get paralyzed. So hope is actually, an important ingredient towards the next step of where you want to be. Let's talk about your hope, right? The hope of the future generation, the little kids, the children who are actually benefiting from the schools that you build with this kind of system, like. How do you see schools? I mean, are schools going to be online?
I'm sorry, I did not hear that at all, Cherry.
Okay, we were talking about national building, right? Building the nation again and transforming. And your hope, your story is about for every bottle of hope or whatever that is, you give social good, and you're able to actually affect national transformation in the form of education, perhaps. Now, what is the future of education right now? I mean, do you see young children going back to school in the near future? Is it turning online? How is this whole, school building thing going to come through right now?
Yeah, this is going to be a challenge. I think if you look at the profile of education globally, it's going to change quite a bit. Of course, your wealthier countries will make this transformation much more easily. And I actually believe that in wealthier countries, that this will be very much, this will democratize education a lot, whether it's from, especially at the higher levels, at the college levels, at the high school levels. I think this is going to do great things, potentially, in education. But that's for the wealthier countries. For developing countries, I think it's a completely different story. I think that our ability to make the transition will be very slow because we do not have the infrastructure to be able to roll out safe platforms for education, right? If you have, I'm not sure what it is right now, but if you have 80+% of the population in public schools, right? Even if your private schools go online and everybody is doing fine and keeping up, if the majority of your population is unable to keep education and curriculum intended for them, then the entire country suffers, right? So physical education will be challenging, I think, in the same way that the rest of the world is waiting for a vaccine to, even when the rest of the world comes out with a vaccine, what's the likelihood that the entire global population, especially developing countries, will have access to that at scale, right? Mm-hmm. So it'll be very, very difficult. You just have to look back at polio, right? How they managed to roll out the polio vaccines and make people safe. So I don't know the timeline on that. My guess is the older students, high school and college, will probably be able to begin sooner, because I think educators are under the impression that the older students will be able to can be trusted to follow the health guidelines to keep both themselves and their families safe when they go home, whether it's social distancing or any other of the precautions. I think they trust that the older the child, the greater the ability to comply, right? But with younger children, that's extremely difficult, in which case you put the family at risk. And for wealthier families or wealthier countries, you can always take that online. But in the Philippines, we don't really have that option. So I'm not quite sure how DepEd is thinking about it, but I would expect that this is going to be a challenge for most developing countries.
Let's talk about your goal, right, in helping the Filipinos. What is it that you would like to see happen so that when you walk away from this, in the future, you would say that is actually energy, time, and effort and blood, sweat, and tears well spent? What is the future that you would like to see for our country?
I don't think I'm going to peg on my level of satisfaction on how much change I can influence. I think because so much of that is beyond my control, and if I kind of make those kinds of deliverables the reason why I feel fulfilled or not, that might be problematic. So I think that the healthier way for me to approach it is to just do my best, right? So if at the end of my life I can say that I gave this my absolute best, whether there is minimal improvement or a lot of improvement, right? It really is a function of what I can influence, right? What I personally am able to control. And all I can control at this point is how big an effort I make, right? Okay. So I think that's the way I would look at it. I wouldn't necessarily look at it as, we have built X classrooms, and I mean, I can only do my best.
But what makes Nanette Medved's heart full? What makes your heart full from this, work that you're doing?
I think that I'm very driven by the idea that I don't want to be a waste of space, right? That if the world can be slightly better than the way I found it, then I'm additive, right? I'm not a waste of space.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I feel like I have been given incredible gifts in my life, right? I've been blessed with a great husband, a great family, a great career, kind of health, and all of the things that we would wish for. When you are given those things, what do, right? So I just feel like I have a strong sense of responsibility to benefit someone outside of myself.
Are there special stories that have touched you that you try and think about, things that happened in the past, stories with the people that you serve, that just gives you energy to go on and on? Because like in our work, I can even when you're talking about transformation, sometimes there's, we get, our enemies are, exhaustion and burnout, and we try and remember back, stories from the past that just makes our energies full again. Is there any special story that you could remember?
No, I think I like to treat all the stories that come across our table equally, right? Because everyone's story is equally valid and important.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and I think that I feel a sense of betrayal if I treat one with more importance than the other, right? All of the stories are important, and I feel like those are actually the more inspiring stories than my own. So we have whether it's our students or the people who work for Hope, or the people that carry Hope, they all have incredible stories. They're the true Hope heroes, by the way.
And what about the Hope heroes there? How are your people? How's the spirit of your people right now?
I'm hoping it's good. Everybody's kind of work from home, but we are always in touch because we're still, the show has to go on. I do a weekly check-in, pre-COVID as well. We have a weekly check-in with everybody, and people seem to be holding up fine, so that's good.
Let's just do a little bit of, imagination or visualization, right? When you started your career, you were this superhero. We're talking about, hope heroes. At the start of your career, you were the hope hero, with your super strength, your agility as DARNA and everything. So a bit of imagination here. If you were to actually have the DARNA power, which particular superhuman quality would you want to have to be able to make work that's, a lot of impact, especially right now that we are going through this huge crisis and we need a hero? What kind of super strength do we need?
Oh dear. This might be very disappointing to you guys, but I actually don't believe in the idea of one person being a hero. I believe that heroic acts are done by groups of people. That I don't believe that one person can save the world. I just don't. So I think you have leaders, right, who have maybe greater influence and the ability to kind of create change. But at the end of the day, it's still a group effort. Everybody has to bring their best selves to change, not just. So if I had to choose one superpower that could hopefully do that well, it might be just the power to convene, right? To bring the right people to the table, to help them understand, or have the group work together to understand what's best for everyone and move forward together, right? But I don't believe in one person being in charge of change and being the hero.
I
And
think
being the star.
it's the leader being a dealer of hope. You know, you're saying the power to convince, to influence, but at the end of the day, it's a group of people doing the change, right, and helping us.
Yeah.
How are we as a nation? Are we doing well in terms of working together, in terms of teamwork? Are we doing well as a nation?
You know, that's super interesting. I was talking to, I was on a conference the other day with people around the world, and it was very interesting because I was very proud to talk about the work that was being done in the Philippines. It's certainly far from perfect, right? But unfortunately, everybody's doing trial and error. Nobody knows how this works. And so, like I said earlier, the best you can do is to do your best, right? As an individual or as a leader, and try and work together to have good results. And I actually believe that we have done wonderfully at that. It's not perfect, but I have seen great examples of the private sector really coming together at, competition out the door, and really working together to try and find a solution that will bring some relief to the country. And these private sectors are not working alone. They are working with government, and government officials who have been involved in these conversations have been extremely hardworking. And I am very, very impressed at how everyone has rallied around trying to do what's best for this country. So it gives me hope that we will remember what it's like to come together and try and solve the big problems that face us, and know that we can do it, right? I mean, it's not perfect. Certainly we are far from, having flattened the curve or isolated all, infections and all of that. But I think the more important takeaway here is our ability to come together and work together around common goals, because that is a discipline that you can take into any crisis, right? And as information comes in, as we learn, I think that I really believe that the private sector and the government will do what's right for the Filipino people. I really do believe it.
Yeah, I agree with you, right? This collective turbulence that we are experiencing, and we need to attack this with collective, coherent heart rhythm, Filipinos acting as one. So you mentioned something about hope. My question is, what is it that you hope to change? If there is probably one distinct Filipino, let's call it negative trait that is so persistent in us, that we need to actually just adjust or change so that we could actually move together as one nation. We talk about, is this okay now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. We were talking about collective turbulence and the need to actually have collective heartbeats, right? That we need to forge forward together as one nation. My question is, using hope, we have distinct Filipino negative traits sometimes that's derailing us from moving toward together. What is it that you hope to change in us, or adjust in us, so that we will all move forward together here in this crisis?
I think the closer we can move to making the collective good our goal, and I hesitate to call out specifically how that might be done, but whether it's from the private or public sectors, if we can resist and make sure that we put the collective good above everything else, I think I would hope for that the most.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't just apply to leaders.
It's actually,
it doesn't just apply to leaders. It also applies to, this could just be from an individual point of view as well, right? If you can always make a decision in consideration of something other than yourself, I think you'll always be well guided.
I think it's our capacity to forget ourselves sometimes, especially if there is actually a bigger thing that we need to actually achieve together, and just help in that shared common purpose. It's going to actually make us healthier as a nation and move forward faster. We have one question here, Nanette, from our audience. The question is, I totally agree with how change is a team effort. Any suggestions on how we can viral this kind of mindset among the cynics?
I honestly have for how you can change the cynics, right? Because that's a mindset thing, and that you're the expert on that. Changing mindset, right? It really is a mindset problem, because no matter technical mindset, I think there's very little you can say that will. You need to change the lens, and I would, okay, then my advice would be to speak to Cherry Africa and see if we can change the mindset before we do anything else.
Thank you. But have you ever met, you are carrying a huge mission, right? Have you ever met cynicism or cynical people who told you it's not going to happen here?
Yes!
And how did you respond to that?
Started Hope. So when I first came up with the idea of Hope, I did not intend to do it myself, because I have absolutely zero business to be in the FMCG space, right? I mean, this is not my skill set. It is not my experience. So this is not something I wanted to do myself, right? The likelihood of failure would just be too high for my appetite. But when I went out to companies and said, hey, I've got an idea, why don't you allocate one SKU that is devoted to whatever social good you would like to pursue, whether it's, malnutrition, or it's health in general, or it's education or environment, whatever. And everybody thought I was crazy, because a lot of companies are very attached to their profits and are not looking for ways to reduce them, right? So I became very frustrated and upset. And since nobody was willing to prove that business for good could work, I just decided to do it myself. Mm-hmm. So Hope was really born out of frustration. And how wonderful, right? I'm so grateful now for the pushback. I'm so grateful for the challenge and for the frustration, because it guided me to try and be creative and come up with ways to prove that the market will support a company that's trying to do the right thing.
And we are talking about business for good, I guess, in terms of business model. What would be the most important thing? Is it purpose? Is it people? Is it planet? I mean, what is the North Star here? Or is it profit?
I think it's all of those things. I don't think it works without all of those things. So you definitely need good people, right? Not just leadership, but the organization itself has to believe in the mission, right? They need to believe in the work that they're doing together. I think that they, as a group, should decide on what they want to champion, what's important to them, not just as a company, but as an organization, right? That's the whole democratizing work thing, right? It's not just what the boss thinks is important, but what do you guys believe in as an organization, and invest in those things, right? And profit is hugely important, because you need to be profitable in order to make a difference. And the more you scale, which is, of course, I think the other thing that's extremely important, the better. Because if you're only creating change one day out of 365 days a year and only in one small pocket, it's not going to create the kind of change that's meaningful, right? You want to be able to scale. And in order to scale, you need to be profitable. You need to have an organization that is bought into the mission, and you have to have the right projects, right? And another thing that's important, I think, especially today with consumers nowadays, is you need to be transparent, right? And authentic. So you need to be able to show, not just come out with a press release that says, oh, we cleaned up the ocean one day out of the year, but actually demonstrate that you are not polluting the other 364 days of the year, right? So that sort of transparency is very important.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned something about your business going through some tough times because of this new normal thing, right? And yet I still feel a lot of positive energy from you. What is in your DNA, Nanette, that's keeping you so, you seem to be a high hoper. What's keeping you so joyful? Where is this energy coming from?
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but okay, I think I understood the question. I think that the reason why I'm very hopeful and very positive is I'm fortunate enough in my own work to see the best sides of people every day. So even before COVID came along, in my line of work, whether it's, talking to a purchasing person at a company or the CEO, or even all the way down to the cashier, right? I see the best sides of people because they understand why I'm there. They understand that I'm there because I'm trying to do something that's better for our community. And so I see the best sides of people. So when a crisis hits, I'm confident that that best side of people did not disappear. It's still there. And that it will find its way into whatever problems that we have, because I think fundamentally people are good. They may not always do good things, but it's there. And in times like this, the character of people comes out, and a lot of times you'll see something that's very good. Even people who are extremely poor or have very little will help their neighbor, right? A kid who doesn't have money or crisis, will help another child, right? Do their homework, keep up at school. I think that I see the best sides of people. I know it's there. And so when a crisis hits, I'm confident that everybody gets to see it now, not just me.
Yeah, because people pay more attention, right, to the things that matter most. I like it what you said about seeing the best side of people. My question is, how do you inspire your people there? I mean, your team. I visited you. You have a lot of young people. How do you keep their energy going? How do you make sure that they continue to be high hopers, despite the things that are happening right now?
I don't think that's something I do. I think we all, they do that for me too, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all, when I say I see the best side of people, it's the collective we, right? It's all of us. Everyone at Hope sees the best sides of people. And I think we are all inspired that this good side of people is something that will show in this crisis. And I certainly am not responsible for how amazing my team is. We all do it together, and they're amazing in their own right. So so maybe Hope brings out the best in them. I don't know, or maybe they bring out the best in me, right? So
I think it's the shared energy of a purpose, that is so strong, that begins in the heart, I think, right? And everybody just gives his best, giving energy to each other. I like what you're saying, that consciousness to actually bring people together, especially at this time, and for people to actually give a lot of energy to their leaders, right? We need that.
Yeah, and it's not perfect every day, right? So there are days where I am less optimistic than I would like to be, in which case I rely on the people around me to carry me, right? And in days when they aren't, I carry them. And I think that's the way it should work in life in general, right? Can't always rely on it's not always perfect. Your leaders are not always going to have the answers, but if your leader is open enough to making sure that this is a group effort, you'll do it together.
So do you ever have very low hope days?
Yes. Very few, but
it feels human to hear that you are human.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
I'd rather not say what those moments are because they're very public.
Uh-huh.
And I will probably I can think of 2 in specific days in my that were really low hope moments, and I felt like the world was pulled out from under me, that I didn't somehow recognize the world, and that's very difficult for I guess for someone who tends to be more optimistic. And I think what happened was I put one foot in front of the other in faith, right? I or anyone else may not necessarily understand why things are happening. And we shouldn't be arrogant to think that we do, that we have the world figured out, right? And that we trust that if we put one good foot in front of the other, as best as we know how, it's not going to be perfect each day, that at some point you're going to look back and say, aha, okay, there was a reason why this happened. I needed to learn this, or I needed to do this, or whatever it is, right? And just try to learn as best as you can each day that you go in. And when you can't, just have faith that it won't always be that way, and it'll be better, right? So I think that's the way I tackled it. I tackled it in faith.
Yeah, faith, hope, and love, right? The most basic primal energies that we have. And I like it. I like that hope is actually giving us the energy to recover, to bounce back up, and to just keep forging forward. And in times of crisis, high hopers would create a lot of multiple options so that we get to our goals. So I guess in that aspect, seeing you here and the company that you have built, that hope really is not a wishy-washy thing. It's something that's real. It's something that's tangible. I mean, we are all hopeful, seeing how you've actually energized in your own way, a nation that's, looking for a champion, a superhero, a collective team of superheroes to make their lives better. So you are a force of awesome, Nanette. So thank you for your work. It's so inspiring. I guess I just have a few questions here. There is something that we share together. We are both firewalkers. So I wanted to ask, was there any message from the fire to you when you walked on the coals, the 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit of coals?
Yeah, so it's a great analogy for what we just talked about, right? When things aren't necessarily, when you are faced with something that is frightening, right? Or and I'm trying to see this through the eyes of my children, right? Who did it with us. And seeing a bed of coals, bright red, it is frightening, right? But if you trust the people who guide you, that you have faith, that you can put one foot in front of the other, listening to your guide, and make it through and be very proud of where you wind up, right? So that's kind of the experience that my children had. This is an experience I think adults have many times in their lives, their own versions of fire, right? But if you are, you can take each step with faith and trust your guide, that you should be fine.
Yes. And we are going through our hottest fire right now, right? This is unprecedented. We've never imagined this to happen before. We need double dose of hope to get through this. How has this crisis made you a better person, Nanette?
Patience is not a quality that I have in abundance. And I think that a crisis like this forces one to be patient. And maybe in that patience, focus on you may super important in the rush of everyday life, to kind of go back to the core and understand what is really important in your life, the things that you truly can't do without, and spend some time nurturing those things. So I actually think this has been a great opportunity if you can have the mindset to do that, then this time can be incredibly productive.
Yes, it's essentially how you look at things, right? How you spin all of these things to make it useful and work for you. And we are all patiently waiting, right? I guess for somebody who's like, you seem to be somebody's like action person, and so waiting is is difficult. And so yes, the amount of patience that's required to get through this, and not knowing what's next for us. But if you were to know what will be next for hope,
I think that we would want to kind of broaden the partnerships that we currently have. This crisis has also taught us that doing things on our own is not necessarily the best way to make impact, that we should work with others, whether it's other private companies, whether it's other nonprofits, right? So we intend to do that much more aggressively. moving forward.
I think the consciousness that we don't have all the answers, right? And so we need to actually gather our resources, work with people, as you said, competition's no longer as relevant as cooperation, and we're actually finding ourselves working with each other, private, public sector, everybody, even, if you are competitors, you're just suddenly the same field, the same Zoom, meeting, and finding ways to just battle this.
This crisis has been a great equalizer, I think, psychologically for a lot of people, right? It doesn't matter geographically where you are, right? What your race, religion, gender, we are all equal in this. And I think that it's a wonderful opportunity to do exactly as you said and focus more on cooperation than anything.
Yes, and also hope is an equal opportunity resource. We all have hope. And so I think at this point, while we are waiting to have that kind of abundance in terms of hopeful thinking, it's not going to hurt. It's just going to help us. Thank you.
It costs you nothing.
Exactly. Yes. and positive energy, useful energy is free. And we have that in abundance. And so we keep looking for that, the deepest resources inside us to try and make ourselves the best version of ourselves as we patiently wait for the next that's to come. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, I look at you, you are actually, reverberating with a lot of energy. So we need to see that. So thank you so much, Nanette. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we say goodbye?
No, thank you so much for having me, and I hope to see you on the other side.
Yes, love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. This is such an engaging conversation with the Hope visionary herself, Nanette Medved-Po. Thank you so much for bringing your mission to our House of Awesome, and for your team of Hope Heroes that you continue doing an awesome job helping alleviate whatever it is that we are experiencing so that we could come out to be better people. I am reminded by the story that I've read about the first Sikh woman warrior. Her name is May Bago, and I remember that there was actually 40 soldiers who abandoned their post one day because they were very scared, and they went back to their village. And when they came to the village, this woman actually looked at them in the eye and said, I want you all to go back. Do not abandon your post. Go back to your fire, and I will lead you. And true enough, she took a horse, she put on her turban, and then she held a sword, and with fire in her eyes, she brought this cohort of 40 soldiers to a place they never thought they would go. And true enough, we need these leaders, and I'd like to invite everybody with hope in our hearts to rally behind our leaders, fall in line, because all of us are going to walk through this hot as fire, and there will be heavy challenges ahead. Never mind, it is okay, because hope perches on our soul, and hope springs. In our journey towards this battle together, I wish you all Godspeed with lifetime. Thank you so much for watching our show.